All right. I am Joshua Kemble. I forgot to actually set this up with my crazy banner. Real quick, let me throw that on there. Woo! Big crazy banner. Okay, set up. So I'm doing a live stream after doing a live stream with Corey Kerr. So we've continued here with the Night Gang. For anybody joining, welcome. And my main objective in doing this is just to finish up the page that I started, or at least my minimum goal is to get at least halfway through. Hey, Ronnie's in the chat. How you doing, man? And my hope today, like, this won't be a very extremely long stream. I've said that before and ended up streaming for like 4 hours. But this is one of those ones where I do have work in the morning. So I'm hoping to kind of wrap this by like 1:30. That way I can get like the minimum amount of sleep that I need to like function well tomorrow. But I'm halfway through. Well, I'm not halfway. I'm about a third to a quarter of the way through with working on the thumbnail for page 112 of quarterly stories, which is really exciting. And it's getting closer to the end. I'm kind of getting into a part where I talk really pretty blatantly about my faith and like some of the things that sort of changed my mind when I was an atheist, sort of in the pit of despair. The pit of despair. No one escapes the pit of despair. Sorry. Anyhow, sorry, that was a little Princess Bride reference there. But anyhow, so for those of you who might just be tuning in for the first time to this stream, I'm an independent cartoonist, and I do a graphic novel called Two Stories. And so this is book 2 that I'm working on. Book 1 is available on Amazon. You can get it for like $9 now, and it's usually retails for like $19.99. So that's a pretty good discount if you go to Amazon. And if you do it through Prime, you like $9 free shipping, which is pretty cool. Memoir about faith and mental illness. Book 1 is out through Marcosia Enterprises. It's also available at a bunch of different bookstores and stuff like that online. So if you don't have Amazon near you, or like you prefer to order through a different retailer, it's pretty much available through every online book retailer. And you can also request your local indie bookstore open or order it. So I feel compelled at the beginning of these things to at least let, for anyone who's just coming in green, like let them know a little bit about what this is. And then the only other thing I have to explain is that like I just usually do these streams almost nightly when I'm working on comics. And then Ronnie, who joined us. So I am coming from the Indie Review Show, which you can check out at irsagency.com. Like we just wrapped a book review tonight with my friend Corey Kerr. And then I also did a live stream afterwards, little after party, which we do every Monday on Corey Kerr's channel. And so, yeah, it was fun. And Ronnie has joined us and said he's okay. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So, oh, restaurant gift card, so she doesn't have to cook. Just letting you know. Okay, sorry, that was me. My wife is also being in the night gang tonight as well, working on kids' books in the background. So it's a big draw-off hangout tonight. All right, so I was in this part of this book where it is starting to ask about, like, why of all the animals humans hide their nakedness. And that's where I'm at. So that's what I've got so far on here, and I need to figure out what I'm going to do for the next sequence. On these, I usually keep blank layers that contain like some of the previous. Oh, Ronnie said, did you get sick with the second shot? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that put me out for like 2 days. And then honestly, I had like crazy insomnia and a little bit of like crazy mood swings like for the rest of the week. And I think some of that definitely might have been a byproduct. But like those first 2 days after getting our vaccine shots, my wife and I got them at the same time. in retrospect, if I had to plan it again, or if we ever have to get like, I think these last for about 6 months. So if 6 months from now we have to get it again, I might organize it so that our second shot is like spaced apart so that the person who's not like, so we have one person to watch the kid. But we're both really happy to have gotten it done. And like, we're on the countdown till we hit the 2-week mark. So we can like feel just at peace and like maybe meet up with a friend and be able to actually give a hug to like family members and stuff, like it's pretty exciting. But man, that was a rough week. Was it tough on you, Ronnie? Did you already do the second shot? Okay. So now let's see. This is going to be a very stupid question that I have in my comic because it's funny. Why not evolve a rad fur coat? Is that a stupid question? Seems like a stupid. It's supposed to be funny, but I don't know. My humor is a little off. It's like 12:30 where I'm at, so who knows? But I do want to at least get to like, I'm gonna draw a line here, and like if I can get to here on my comic, I am at a good point to call it a night. But if I can't get there, I'm not gonna allow myself to go to sleep till I at least get to that point. Even if I'm not gonna get a full page done, I want to get like at least a half done. So why not evolve and this might make me not like the deepest thinker, but I do actually think that's a really good question. Like, it was weird to me because I had spent like 15 years as like just a very avid like, and I wasn't like your typical atheist like some of the atheists I know now. I think I like went full bore into like the internet atheist, like the trend. Like I was really into like Dawkins and Hitchens, and so I was like full bore, like very aggressive about my atheism. But like even then, when I was like knee deep in it and really bought into not just atheism but existentialism, I remember just being really, really moved by like as silly as that question is. That question really bugged me. Like, why do we wear clothes? It's just an interesting quandary. So yeah, so that's one of the questions. There's some really profound questions that have more to do with like ethical dilemmas and meaning of life kind of issues and stuff like that. But this was one of the few. There are like 3 or 4 things that really bugged me when I didn't believe there was a God, and this was strangely one of the more humorous ones, but definitely one of the ones that I struggled with. If I debated a Christian, I would always struggle with like, why do we wear clothes? And I remember this book pointed that out. I was like, it's a pretty good question. I'm sure there's an answer. Honestly, I would actually love to hear it. And this isn't like a gotcha kind of thing. Like if if you guys are not believers or whatever, I would love to hear like what the kind of. I could probably look it up too. I'm sure there's got to be like an explanation that doesn't require like an outside source, like the whole biblical explanation as to why human beings wear clothes. But I do think it's just a really interesting, weird, unique thing in that book that I don't know if I don't know. I'd just be really interested in hearing, because I found it really compelling. And I do think the fact that we have sweat glands, like actually, like, so the fact that we're low on hair and we have sweat glands and do wear clothes does allow us to be adaptable to a level. So maybe there's a reason, but like outside of like positing like a larger creation narrative or something. But It's still an interesting one to me. Okay, why not evolve a rad fur coat? Yeah, Ronnie said, yeah, it was tough. It's been almost 3 weeks since I got it. Yeah, have you kicked it though? Like kicked the side effects? I hope so, because it's a um, and I want to be really clear on here too. And this isn't just for like the algorithm or so I don't get flagged on YouTube or anything. I sincerely mean like it. You know, if you have to choose between the vaccine and not getting vaccinated, I personally think you should choose the vaccine. Like it's just a no-brainer. Like I have a close friend who like has like had like brain swelling and their tonsils rot out because of COVID. Like actually getting COVID. And they've been like seeing because of the brain swelling. And this is an after effect. Like so they had like 2 weeks of feeling like I felt for like a day, but worse because it wasn't the like tamped down like version of the virus. So they felt like that for like 2 weeks and then kicked it. And if that were it, well, maybe it wouldn't be worth it. But it's like that's usually not it for most people. After that, it can like result in death, or like the parts they don't talk about, like the death numbers, what scares people or is used as like a scare thing to get people on board with like getting rid of it, and that it should be a concern. But like outside of that, like there's all kinds of crazy side effects for people who live after getting COVID. So it's like super. I just want to be clear, like we're talking about like side effects and stuff like that. And yeah, they're like, there's side effects, but I still think like if you have to choose, like definitely go the route of just getting the vaccine, suffer through the like day or so of side effects, and like honestly, like you're going to be thankful for it because then like you don't end up having to deal with that crap for a year and like seeing things. Because the friend who's like brain swole up like after getting COVID, like he like literally saw like saw things like the sky changed color and the floor warped and stuff, and like he had to like live his life like for like a year just like trying to make sense of things, like with his brain not doing what it should do because like it had all these weird side effects from COVID. So if you have to, I'm just saying like that's a possibility if you got COVID, but like if you have to pick between that and like a couple days of feeling like crap and calling out sick from work, take the days, take the days of feeling like crap is all I'm saying. Because like on the other end of it, Ronnie, that's cool that you did it, and like on the other end of it, yeah, like you feel, I don't know, do you feel relief? Like I feel a sense of relief, even though like it was rough, like having the side effects. It's like I don't feel, yeah, I feel like it's the right choice to make, and it's also better for like society and for other people and for not spreading it and not incubating like variations of it and stuff. And by the way, when I'm talking about this, I'm not talking to you, Ronnie, because you've already gotten the thing. But it's just in case anybody watches this and goes, look, the vaccine is crazy. It's like, no, the vaccine's great. Like, so yeah, it just sucks that it has side effects, but I'll take it. I'll take that over getting the actual full out thing. All right, so why not evolve a rad fur coat? Like, these are such hard things to come up with imagery for. Guess maybe I could have this guy. Again. Okay, I'm gonna just keep him. All right, that is the right route. And Yeah, so Ronnie was saying, I really do feel relief. I know some people were telling me not to get it because of my movement disorder, but I did it anyway. That's good, man. Yeah, I mean, like, if those people weren't doctors, then, like, screw that, you know? A lot of people give a lot of bad advice. um, although I can understand it, you know, but it's just like I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm definitely not a doctor though, so. But I would just think like it seems like a no-brainer. Okay, so this is gonna be the rad fur coat. It's me just freestyling here, so for a thumbnail, I do like the idea of. Okay. I need to have this make a little more sense here. So everybody's got their weaknesses in drawing, and I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I am one of my weaknesses as an artist is actually drawing the lower half of the human body, and it's something I need to work on a little bit. I just tend to exaggerate it too much, and it's not really like that hard to do. So, but like I said, it's one of my weaknesses. All right, so this is gonna be rad fur coat evolution dude. Do. Adding fur to somebody is really fun. Okay. Especially when they're like an evolved fur coat. What is that going to look like? And also, these are thumbnails. Yeti dude. Yeti dude. How you doing, Yeti dude? That's my song about Yetis and Yeti dudes. Okay, cool. All right. I think that works. Yes. Okay. And we're going to also lose the frame because we're doing. And also, I like the idea of this actually saying rad fur coat on one line. So we're going to adapt that. And I'm already starting to feel kind of woozy because it's late into the night. But I drew that line for a reason. That line is my stopping point. Anything before that line is not acceptable. Okay. I'm glad you did, and I hope the side effects have kind of gone away, dude. Yeah, it was tough, man. Fever, all that fun stuff, like aches. Tough with a kid too, because you're just like, you know, we definitely put on a lot of movies and called grandma a ton for my kid because we had like 2 days of just like I can't even get out of bed, you know. Okay. And Adam was saying, did you ever read The Naked Ape? No, I have not. What is that? You got to tell me, Adam. That sounds kind of cool. Maybe that's the solution to my question here about why people are prone to clothes, and also like ornamental clothes. That's the part that I think is really curious. Like even utilitarian clothes I get, but it's like you go across the world and there's like cultures, just there's like this weird thing where like people don't seem comfortable being naked, like even if they have different taboos than we do. um, it's just interesting. Okay, so there we go. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, he was saying the book speculating about human evolution, why we were naked, and especially sexual compared to other species. Yeah, and that's interesting because I don't know how much more sexual we are than other animals. Like you look at like dolphins; those things are like hormonal little beasts. But I'm gonna have to write that down. Maybe I'll check out that book. That sounds pretty fascinating. Do you know who wrote it, Adam? Just out of curiosity in the chats. Sorry. I should be sharing these too. So, okay. Kind of curious. All right. So this is going to say no. Okay. Okay. Desmond Morris. Okay. I'll check that out. And Ronnie just said he has to go. And thanks for stopping by, man. It's always fun to have you as part of the night gang. I'm assuming you're heading to work or something, right? All right. Ronnie of Crimson Owl Comics works on really cool horror comics, and also uh, has a pretty cool YouTube channel show where he talks about horror comics. It's from the 60s, so it's probably considered to be outdated, but it's really interesting. Yeah, it is. I don't know. Like, to me, that's a good topic. It's definitely a good question, you know? Um, and I want to be clear, like, for me, it was interesting and kind of acted as a pointer to like the possibility of the Bible, but it didn't. I don't think it's. I definitely wouldn't rule out like that. There's probably another explanation somebody could give. You know. Oh, this is really interesting. So part of his idea is since we are not covered with fur or something else, our nudity makes us especially sexual and talks about the evolution of breasts, which are not varying in other species. Huh. That's weird. I I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I think there's don't other species have like boobs? I don't know. I think especially apes, but then again, it kind of makes sense because like the primates would be like the further along. Huh? That's interesting, man. Miller argued. But like the thing that to me is really weird is like why the discomfort. I don't know, with like a lack of clothes, or like why, like I guess the thing that's compelling to me about it is like why are we like the only species that like is super uncomfortable naked? Like it's like dogs walk around, I don't know, they just don't seem like all freaked out about their own nudity, you know, like I don't see apes all freaked out about their own nudity, and yet like whatever culture you go to, like there's usually some kind of garment that people feel obligated to wear. It's not like the same concept everywhere, but you rarely like will. I don't know. I don't know if I've heard of like a tribe that's just like fully nude. Like they, even if it's just ornamentation, there's always some kind of covering. And usually culturally, even though it varies, there's always like one thing that's just like, oh, you don't show that. Like it could be like ankles for one culture, it could be like a different thing for another. Oh, Frank, it's this part. So this is a part of the he's like, what did I walk into? It's a part of my book that's talking about some things that opened my mind to the possibility of Christianity. Um, Even though, like, at the time, like when I was reading it, it hadn't quite cracked at this point. But I was reading a book at the time, I read this book by Donald Miller called called Searching for God Knows What. And he talked about just sort of how society's structured, and if you pretend that for a second that like the Bible's true, like what would the world look like? But he also like had a section in it that was really interesting that I hadn't personally heard Christians bring up a lot, which was just like why are people not like why do people wear clothes? And the Bible has like a really clear answer on that. And I'm not saying I don't want to make a God of the gaps mistake and say like that's a proof of because maybe that's just a gap that like science hasn't filled. And I would hate to be like, because there's a gap, look, there's a God, because like that's a weak argument because it could be filled like the second science fills it. But I just like for me, when I was like hardcore knee deep in atheism, I just thought that was a really compelling question of like, why do people wear clothes? Like it's a weird thing. Like you look at all the animals and they're like really uncomfortable when they're naked, and it's just interesting. I mean, animals are not naturally uncomfortable when they're naked, but like humans are super uncomfortable with it. Like we always have something we have to cover with. So, um, but like even the because he was saying like animals have their genitals concealed or mostly hidden. Dogs are covered mostly in fur, and they're underneath, not right there in the front. So it's taken to mean covered with fur. But yeah, but like the weird thing is like dogs usually aren't pretty shy about like their private parts. You know what I mean? Like apes too. Like man, apes are pretty bold with that business. Like the later primates, that's what I'm getting at. You know, like even the later primates that are like covered in fur, like they're pretty open about like boom, check out my junk. Like they're I don't know. I guess my point is it's just an interesting thing about people, you know. Although I want to read that book, Adam. I'm gonna check it out because it might maybe it dispels or crushes like some of these ideas. Or maybe like honestly, I should look and see if there's more modern books on that. But anyhow, in the context of my comic, it was just a really compelling thing. To me, it was interesting where it's I don't know. Frank, did that ever cross your mind when it came to biblical truth? Like for me, like it totally does. Where I'm like, wow, it's really interesting because they're like, if you just like for a second like even if you like this section of the book, but it's like if you pretend for a second, like even if you totally think the whole thing's absurd, like if you just take a second and pretend like what would the world look like if like the Bible were true, you definitely see people like freaked out about being naked. Like, you know, um, that would definitely be what one thing you would definitely see in the world. And you probably wouldn't see that with animals. Like, that's, I don't know. To me, that's really interesting. Jared Diamond has a book on it's the third chimpanzee. I see. This is really interesting to me too because I didn't know there was like a whole set of books that talked about this topic. But anyhow, I think it's interesting. Frank, did you walk into a conversation that was a little wacky? I actually, Adam, it is really cool though to me, and it's interesting. But see, like that's the thing. Like, technically, they are kind of covered in hair, dude, like Adam. So I don't know. Maybe not, but I think they kind of are. I don't know. It's weird. It's just weird. People are weird, man. So that was my weird, very strange topic, but it's something in my book, so I gotta kind of do that part. Okay. The Bible, Miller argued, provided a very viable reason. Yeah, it's a weird one, right? Like, I mean, because the funny thing is, like, even as a Christian now, it's like I definitely believe that it's really like the most likely thing that like how God made man was using evolution. Like it just seems like that. Like that seems like everything. I feel like God is going to be observable in everything. So like for me, I don't discount the idea that it may not be a literal few days, but I definitely think like there's certain things in Genesis that would be hard as a Christian to not take as literal and be able to call yourself like a theological Christian. Like, and one of them would be like, I mean, you definitely have to believe in original sin, which, is like, it's just like, if you don't believe that, like you may not like, I don't know, it'd be hard. Whatever version of religion you believe in, it would be hard to like call yourself a Christian, I guess. And not that I don't like picking and choosing like who's allowed to be called a Christian or not, but I feel like there's certain fundamental things in Genesis that you would have to hold to be true, like that God created everything. You'd have to actually believe that, even if it was through evolution. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but one of the things that I just think is really weird is like the whole like naked part, which is in the Genesis, about like man being naked and feeling ashamed and like hiding their nakedness, and then like how that had something to do with the fall. It's just interesting because it's like that's one of those ones that sounds like kind of crazy. Like, you talk about like talking snakes and stuff like that. And I know to like non-believers that stuff sounds crazy, but so does like people walking around naked and being comfortable like animals are, and then out of nowhere just being like, dude, I got to cover up. Like this crap's crazy. Like, like it's kind of a crazy premise, but that's one of the ones that it sounds crazy in the book. And then like you look around and you're like, oh, we're all like these lunatic animals that decide we have to cover up, and we feel really weird and ashamed about it. And I'm totally rambling. and I'm not even trying to like preach it. I'm just saying like I'm literally trying to just share like my own, like that's the awkward part about writing this part of the book too, is like it's literally just telling my own story and the things that moved me, not like trying to convince anyone. And like to me that still is a weird one. Like, and when I was a hardcore like you know wow, now it's been a long time. I'm really tired. When I was a hardcore, like almost nihilistic existentialist, I still was bothered by that. Like I remember just thinking like, that is kind of weird though. Like, and outside of like the Bible, I just thought it was weird that we all walk around and we can't just kind of be like animals. It used to just bug me where I was like, why can't people just be like animals and just like walk around naked and be comfortable? Like, it's weird. Like, I mean, it makes sense in like I don't know. Anyhow, it's just totally. But yeah, Frank was pointing out like humility and shame. Like it's just a weird thing that like I think we all have, and it's like it's not like there's any point where I don't know it. I guess it could be argued that it's like culturally taught, but the weird part is it's just like across everywhere. Yeah. Well, so like the talking snake thing is usually like used like I used to use it too when I'd argue with Christians, like because it's like an easy diss where you're just like, oh, so you believe in talking snakes, and it's like no Christian I know believes in talking snakes. Like the whole idea was that it was like a possessed animal. Like it's not like the animal like was like behaving like it normally should. It was just like it, it was anyhow. So I think that's a good I don't know. So I don't think most Christians would like walk around and be like, oh, that snake at the zoo is going to talk to me. Like I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of like the sun stopping in the sky thing too. I've seen atheists like really misinterpret that. I did when I was an atheist too. I used to make fun of that. Like and I'm going to get it wrong, but there's like a battle in the Old Testament, and I'm forget. Maybe actually Frank has a way better, I think, knowledge of like the Bible than I do, like in the sense of his memory of it. I tend to remember like events and stuff, but I piecemeal it sometimes. Like I know I have a good understanding of it, but I like don't have a ton of it memorized, which I should. But like in the Old Testament, there's like a battle that happens, and like the sun, like the guy in the battle like prays that the Lord will intervene, that God will intervene, and like the sun literally like stops in the sky, and and the intervention that's prayed for is like, hey, we need longer basically for the battle because they're going to get like butchered, but if they could like extend the battle a little longer, like the daytime a little longer, they could win. And so God like holds the sun in the sky, like prevents it from going down. So like from a physics and science perspective, the thing's insane. Like the idea of like the sun just like stopping, that would mean the earth like literally stop the rotation around the sun. That means every human being would like start flying off the face of the earth because like gravity would stop because like that would stop. Like it's against science, right? So I used to use that as like a example of like how Christians don't believe in science, right? When I was an atheist. But like as a Christian and reading the text, it's like it's pretty obvious, like in the text, like it's not supposed to be something that's normal. It's not supposed to be something that follows the laws of physics and science. It's like it's literally a miracle. It's not like in the Bible, like the sun just stops every day. It's like the sun stopping was a proof to the people on the earth in that battle that God was with them, right? Because those people in the battle were people who had never seen the sun stop. They wouldn't walk around being like, hey, the sun just stops. Like they saw the sun rise and set. And so for that to happen was like a supernatural thing to the people at the time. Even if it's just a story to people, it's like at least treat it in the context it was at. So but yeah, so like to me that's almost insulting to the people who believe. And I know some like really naive, like uneducated Christians too. Like and yet they aren't that naive. Like they're not like, I have never gone to a church where people think that like the sun can just stop and that doesn't have a result on like the physics of the earth, no matter how like against science they might be, right? Like it's just not fair to like assume that they aren't aware that that's a miracle, or they think like virgin births are happening all the time. They don't. Like that the whole purpose of like a virgin birth or like the sun stopping in the sky is that it's an anomaly. It's like a sign, like it's something coming from outside. And anyhow, I'm rambling. The reason I'm rambling about that is because this is the context of what I'm writing for this page. But I got to finish. I got to get to this line, this middle line. Adam said, things like that never bothered me about the Bible, but when one verse says one number of something and another verse said a different number, it really confused me and caused a lot of doubt. Yeah, there's there's some things that seem contradictory, and like I will tell you, like I'll be the first person to say, like like logic in itself is not going to get anyone believing, and like just abandoning logic is not going to get you believing, like you know. So there's one thing that'll get you believing, and it's in the Bible. It's like the whole cliche thing of like knocking on the door and it'll be open to you. That's it. Like you just that's the big trick. Like there's no other way into it. Like for me, I don't think, at least for myself, like I wasn't going to rationally find it, and I was way against it. So, and I was way less nice than you, Adam. Like I was like opposed to it. I used to make fun of people. I still can see things from that old viewpoint, you know, but yeah, yeah. And then, you know, Frank, um, she's just a small town girl living in a lonely world, you know. Sorry, I think that's what you were referencing. Were you referencing? I hope you were referencing the "Don't Stop Believing" song. But anyhow, um, yeah. But I don't think people consciously like. Yeah, I don't think it's like a fully rational thing. But I had an angry atheist phase for about 15 years. I was furious, and I got angrier as it continued. Maybe that was a sign, like, because this whole book is about like my struggle with mental illness and stuff like that, but it's also about how I was saved. And it's like it's a weird thing because it's like I did not well, you guys will see as the pages continue. But yeah, okay, I got the reference. I'm glad I took that ball and ran with it. uh Journey is a guilty pleasure of mine. Like it probably shouldn't be guilty because they're awesome. But yeah, I got no problems with Journey. Okay. Provided a very viable reason people wear clothing. So that was a long, crazy rant, but it's just one of those things of like, there's more nuance to things than I think people like to give it, you know? That is cool. Yeah, I like focusing on interesting stuff too. And like now, you know, like even as a Christian, it's like I don't tend to look at like um, people who don't believe as if I'm somehow better than them or I'm like superior or anything like that, because it's like the whole faith, like the whole idea of the faith is that you're like you're undeserving. Like as a human being, if you're a Christian, it's not like you chose it. Like it's pretty biblically sound and backed, like the idea that like God just kind of picks, and that doesn't make you special like as a human being. Like it makes you valuable, but it like to me I don't think that makes me any better than another person. It just makes me very fortunate. And like as lame as that is, it's like I'm kind of undeserving. I don't deserve God. I was actively opposed to him before I was saved. um and I don't even talk about like Christianity like this much, except in my book and like maybe every once in a while, but I don't tend to talk like this deeply about it. But it's like, so like I think if a Christian is kind of walking around and being like kind of like getting a bullhorn and like standing on a sidewalk and yelling at people and like judging people for being gay or judging people for like different things, like I feel like that's really contrary to what Christ um, teaches in Christianity, where it's about like you literally first off like everybody's a sinner, so like why would you think you're able to like point at other people and say like hey they're evil and they're terrible, because like all people in the belief system are kind of like the whole idea of Christianity hinges on the idea of total depravity, which is like an Augustinian thing. And it's hard for people to accept, and some people like think it means that like Christians are somehow better, and it doesn't actually. Like total depravity means we're all screwed. We're all terrible, and like God is literally the only answer, because like no matter how hard human beings try, like they fail at being perfect, and they can't actually live up to the law. So like the whole anyhow, I'm rambling, but it's just it's been interesting. Yeah, that's a really good point, Frank. Like, I like the idea of the friars saying God is a twit picker. He doesn't use the most perfect people; he uses normal people. Yeah, I feel like, and like once again, I feel like me being saved is just like a weird thing. I wouldn't have expected it, and like, I like I said, I was like actively sort of like I was in the camp that was like, if God is real, then I'm against him. Like that's what I used to kind of how I used to view it, because I just thought it was the whole thing was obscene. So it's so weird to just have had that. I don't know. I almost think that might be God's sense of humor, where he's like, okay, I'm gonna pick this guy who like is totally actively against me, and then make him write a comic about me. I don't know. It's nerdy, but it could, maybe I'm just delusional. I don't know. But, okay, let me get back to drawing, and because the comic kind of explains it better and less verbosely than I do. Like when I get started on that stuff, I can go for a very long period of time just talking about it. But I agree. It's like I know so many people who don't believe in God that I think are way more moral and better than I am, and it's weird. It's weird that that's the case. But I have friends who like I strive to be more like, and they completely don't believe in God. It's weird. Advaita Vedanta. I'm going to write that down and look that up, Adam. He was saying that's what his spiritual views are like. That sounds cool too. Adam, you seem like a deep thinker, and that's cool. To me, I think people should just think. So, like, if they're, I don't know, I like people who think. Okay, so let's see here. Wear clothing. Okay. Well, that's cool. Thanks, Frank. It's interesting. Yeah, and like, so he was saying he uses who he needs for whatever reason, and said he had been struggling with his faith and depression when he read it on Tapas, and it helped you put things into perspective. And that's weird because I would have had no idea that it did that. That's cool. But yeah, I tend to like subscribe to a lot of the like Augustinian stuff, and some of it's like really not easy to digest, where it's like truths that aren't great, like the the idea that like we're all deserving of hell is a hard one to digest, and like the idea of predestination super hard to digest, where it's like it kind of is tough to like think that like a lot of people don't, like we don't really, like we do have free will but we don't, that it gets heavy, and that's the thing I like actually a lot about my faith is like that. I actually like having questions, and I like that there aren't easy answers to everything. Um, and I like exploring like weird questions that don't necessarily have an answer, like, but it's, I also still love reading about like other beliefs and um, philosophy and ethics and all sorts of stuff. And by saying that, I still will openly admit like I am not the smartest person, and I am not like by any means like some kind of scholar or anything when it comes to this stuff. So I was thinking of having like a tree, but I'm realizing this is starting to look like a chick tract, and I don't want this to look like a chick tract. Ugh. I have a better idea. All right, much better idea. Still a little infographic-y, but that's kind of this section, so that'll make it interesting, I think. Trying to think of stuff that'll make this work. Sorry, I'm like looking up some images here. So it's a form of Hindu non-dualist philosophy focused on the oneness of the universe. Interesting. Like, so I remember. Oh yeah, 100%, Frank. It's just like my own personal mission in life is to not do that. Like when it comes to art, like I want to talk about um why I believe, but I don't want to like, I don't think that's my calling, I guess would be how I would say, it's just a different style than what I do. And but like what you were talking about with Hindu non-dualist philosophy, it's interesting because like Hinduism's cool and fascinating, like just the history of it. I read a bit of it, and some of the stories of like Krishna and Radha are like saucy. And it's pretty cool. I also like, I remember in college, and I'm probably misremembering this, but there's like a real connection between Hinduism and Buddhism, um, because regionally, like the religions sort of spread from Hinduism. So like a lot of the basis of Buddhism is in Hinduism. So you see like some crossover, but but it's really interesting, and like some of the earliest like illustrated kind of comic-ish stuff is actually Krishna and Radha like paintings and murals and like triptychs, like and so but it's also just like a fascinating belief system, and I definitely think I liked C.S. Lewis's take on it, like with belief systems, where it's like um C.S. Lewis kind of said like if there is real currency, right, you're going to have counterfeits. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to say anything anyone's is counterfeit. It's just a thought Lewis had on just in general religion, right? Where it's like if you had a true religion, you'll probably have counterfeits. And like most counterfeits, like they're going to have a resemblance to the truth. And so there will be some truth in a counterfeit. And I'm not saying yours is counterfeit, because maybe it's the reverse and mine is, and Hinduism's the way, you know. My point is just like, if there's one that is true, it wouldn't be shocking that a lot of them will reflect the same ideas, because a counterfeit is always going to try to look like real currency. And in order to do that, it's going to have some elements that are true to like what the dollar it's counterfeiting is. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, and then Adam was saying Buddhism is like a rebellion against Hinduism. Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting because like Buddhism and Hinduism had a similar connective tissue as like almost like Catholicism and Protestantism. Like it's like it's kind of like very similar connective tissue and a similar break, which is really interesting. Yeah, so. But I'm gonna check out what you're talking about, Adam. Okay, so here we go. The Bible Miller argued. This is just talking about Donald Miller's book too, but Bible Miller argued provided very okay. That's what I was gonna do. So something more subtle. That's keeping with this whole infographic thing. So here I'm gonna just do like freaking apple with a bite in it. Boom. I also liked so Tolkien and Lewis had a group I think called the Inkblots, and they used to talk theology a lot and stuff. And I remember one of the things that I think Tolkien, I'm trying to remember which one was saved first. I think it was Tolkien who was a believer first. He was a Catholic. And Lewis was an avid atheist when they first met. And that Tolkien had changed Lewis's mind a little bit, but one of the things he had told C.S. Lewis, they were both, you know, people who studied language and also like were really into like mythology. Like they, you know, like their writing definitely reflects it, right? So they were like mythology nerds. And I guess like one day they were out having a drink and like Lewis was saying, well, I just can't believe like Christianity because it seems like a myth. And Tolkien had kind of responded with, it's the one myth that's true. And that's why we like myths. And I thought that was really interesting. I don't know, like, I don't think that's like an apologetic thing that's going to change someone's mind or anything, but it was just an interesting idea of like, what if one of the myths was true, you know? Okay, so the Inkblots does sound like an indie band. And I might be getting it wrong. Maybe it was the Ink Spots. You can probably Wikipedia it. It's also kind of cool to me that like guys that kind of helped invent like a genre, like were like buddies that hung out at like a bar, like at a pub, and like talked about language and stuff, and we're just like uber nerds. I think that's awesome. It's the Inklings. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Did I say Inkblots? The Inkblots definitely sounds like an indie band. Yeah, that's cool, Frank. Like, so Frank was saying he has like a mini comic that uses Captain Courage, and it's like the armor of God scripture, and it can kind of sound like a chick tract, but he's hoping it doesn't have like, you know, as heavy-handed. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I think everybody's got their own jam. Like for me, um, and like I don't think that's wrong. I think that's just kind of your own thing. It's like and maybe that's what you know what you got to do. Um, for me, I feel like I'm supposed to just like make I don't know. This is just a thing, but it's like I think I just need to make an autobio comic about that talks openly about mental illness, and then also just happens to talk about my story of how I became a Christian, because it has a lot to do with like one of the things that sort of helped me navigate and uh, I shouldn't say escape mental illness because I still like deal with depression and the book will get into that too. It's not like a cure all, you know, but it definitely helped change my perspective a bit. Yeah, Adam's totally correct. The second he said it, I was like, dude, there's no way Adam's not right about this because that is definitely the name. So, but they're really cool to read about. There's like books about them and stuff. The Inklings are amazing, and like to me, it's just cool that there's like these guys that were like like I said, it's just inspiring. It's kind of like a bullpen type story. I think it's inspiring when there's people who like help define a whole movement or genre, and then you like you find out like they're friends. You know, the indie ink blots. Well, hey, that is our group, isn't it? I think Frank, the Night Gang. We are in the indie ink blots. So anyhow, okay, I'm gonna get a little artsy with this business. This is the one part where I'll do like a little. I don't know. What am I saying? It's not the one part, but this is gonna be interesting to see how this goes. This might be really. It's a fine line about like the idea of like talking. I mean, Adam, I'm sure you'd have the same struggle like with what you believe. Like if you wanted to write about that, like just as like a personal story, you know, where you're just like, hey, this is like why I believe what I believe and like how it gives me hope or whatever. It's interesting to me. You know, it's like a character, a direction change or something. And you had to write it about that. Like, how do you do that in a way that's not like heavy handed or like sounding like you're trying to, you know, like change people's minds or something? It's a hard one to navigate, is all I'm saying. Because first and foremost, like my main goal in this book is just to try to write a good book. Like I want to write a story that's good. It's hopefully entertaining and hopefully meaningful and hopefully like gives hope and like not hope like religious hope or anything, but just like helps people who are like struggling with depression or mental illness or stuff like that to like know they're not alone. You know, that's like my first and foremost goal. Other than just telling a good story, and then hopefully telling a good story, and then yeah, just talking about like different ways I dealt with stuff. So, but it's a hard one to navigate because I think like there is a lot of heavy-handed stuff out there, and that's not to say that I think that stuff's wrong. It's just like I have a different kind of vibe. So yeah, yeah, I think that's a way to do it, man. Like, and that's I know it's weird, but Adam, I feel like I have the same thing. Well, I think that's just the tradition. I mean, it doesn't have to be an apple. It could just be any fruit, right? um, but I do think if you got a symbol, it's like almost like wings, you know, like there's certain or like God being a white dude, like Jesus being white, which is the weirdest misconception. Um, I don't understand why people think of that. People also think Jesus was like handsome. That's always a weird one to me, because there's like passages that literally kind of describe Christ as being like totally unremarkable to look at, like, um, and yet like you have all these ideas of like, I don't know, for some reason people perpetuate this idea that he was like this super handsome dude. And I think half of what was interesting, like there's even a part where he's preaching, and I think people were like, hey, this guy's not like really, he doesn't look like anything special, but he's like saying all this cool stuff, you know? Yeah, right? Frank, like, I don't know, I just find that really weird. Like blonde hair and blue eyes, and he's like gazing off at the sunset. It looks like some weird Chuck Norris movie or something from the 80s. Like, it's just, it's, I don't know. I always find that interesting. But yeah, Adam's correct on that. Like, apple used to just mean fruit in general. So. But there's a lot of holdovers. But I will say, like, hey, if that's the, you know, it's not that it couldn't be an apple. So there's that. um, Probably wasn't an apple. Let's see. Maybe it was a Snapple. Did you ever think about that? This is me being tired and telling dad jokes. I'm like, apple sounds like Snapple. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, so Adam, like, I like the idea of incorporating your values into a narrative. And that's all I'm kind of doing with this. I know it's weird. It gets a little more like talking about it toward the end, but it's definitely not going to be like, so therefore you guys should all kneel and like give your lives to God or something at the end. Like, it's just going to tell my own experience, you know? So that's like, it's a character arc kind of thing. But I do think if you're trying to preach, like, because once again, my goal is just to share my experience and have like an autobio comic. But if you're trying to preach, that might actually, especially if you're trying to get super like to preach, like that might be the best way to do it about whatever you believe. Have it in a fiction narrative where, you know, if you want to teach about like morality or whatever, you have like the people in your the characters in your story like reflect those morals, or it, you know, like, yeah. So I think that is probably the best way to kind of go about it. Okay. This is a little chick tracty. All right. Well, this is my chick tracked page, because I don't think there's a way around it. Okay. All right, you guys. I think I might hit my mark, but it has been an hour. Well, yeah. Although then again, that's why like historically like, people have always called it like but if it was an apple, the worm inside had intense knowledge. That's true. Um, Even that though is really interesting. Like people have this conception that like that's clear as day to Christians, and it's not. Like to this day, like what was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Like what does that even mean? Like does that mean they bit it? There's all sorts of speculation, and there's definitely like informed guesses, but it's like, was it like a tree that allowed them to know their own difference from their creator? Was it a tree that literally gave them knowledge of good and evil? Is it, like, was it metaphorical? Like the title of it, knowledge of good and evil for something else? Did it give them knowledge of themselves in a weird way? Like, what did it do? It's interesting. Um, and then you wonder, like, because uh, there's another thing about like them getting kicked out so they wouldn't eat it again and like sort of taste like immortality without God or something like that. And it's really interesting because there's all sorts of theories on it, but it's not like black and white. Um, the result of it's black and white, right? The fact that it was disobedience is black and white, but it's like the whole passage like is just full of like weird kind of curious ambiguity, and there's all these different takes on it, and that's what's so fun and dynamic about Christianity to me is like it's not like a myopic thing. And most places I've been that are like myopic about things, like the important thing is like they disobeyed their creator, right? And they indulged in a thing, and by doing that they were separated from God. Like, but it's just super interesting. I don't know, to me it's really interesting because it's like the idea that like there are like some things that are taught like in general in Western culture, like we think these are like black and white solved things that all Christians like 100% agree on, and that and there are some that are just like 100% not that, and I think that's really cool. They only took one bite each. What if they ate a wild apple? Oh, a whole apple. That's true. So anyhow, it's just like it's a bunch of interesting stuff. So let's see here. It would be funny though if it was like, and if I had like a little worm guy here, maybe I could draw like a little wormy. It's just coming out. Hold on. Before I take my little mandatory ancillary break, this will not be in the final, so this is like a sneak peek for those who watch the stream. When you guys see the final page, if I end up sticking with this Apple thing, you guys will see this forever when you see this page. Well, hi. Right? So when you guys see this page in the future in black and white in the book, you'll just have to imagine like a little worm popping out going, well, hi. Okay. So that's it. That's the last time that worm will exist. That was for you, Frank, for you, Adam, for whoever else is out there watching. That was a special moment. And now it's gone. Okay. I'm gonna go take a 10 to 20-second break, and then I'm gonna finish up this page to that line. Right? So what is the tree of like? There's all sorts of fun stuff, but like that's a good one. What is the tree of life? Um, uh, and then like once again, like a lot of theologians think like the reason they weren't supposed to eat from the tree of life, lest they should live forever or whatever. It's like sparing them from hell, because like most theologians interpret like hell as like the separation from God and man, like being eternally separated from God. So that was like him sparing them in mercy, but still, like, what is the tree of life? Like, it's all sorts of interesting and mystical, and I like it. And I like that it's interesting and mystical. You know, that's my point. So, okay, I'll be back in like about 10 seconds, and then I'm going to finish up this page. And yeah, hopefully you guys found this interesting. Just rant about, it kind of makes sense. I tend to ramble about stuff that I'm talking about in my pages. So, all right, be right back. All right, so here we go. And now we're going to get on this whole finishing this thing. Okay, so this is going to say, and work endlessly. And that might be my stopping point for the night. This one is going to bring us back into the narrative a little bit. And kind of reference like older pages because this is getting close to the end. Three. And I want to keep going and just kind of finish it up, but I really can't once I'm done with this panel. So I'm peeking through. I got to find, I think it's like mid in chapter 2. Okay. Chapter 2, yep. Page 48. Frank was saying, how is Scott? He hasn't seen him on a live stream apart from Artcasters. Well, he's still putting out videos, man. And on his Patreon, he just posted one recently that was really cool. And it was, I'm going to be reflecting these pages where it's, look at that. Boom. So his last video, oh my gosh, what was it? It was really good. I'm just blanking out because it's like 1 a.m. Had a pretty interesting day today too because I rearranged my whole studio space, so you'll notice like this is maybe in a different direction than usual. I'll have to show it like on one of my vlogins in the future, but there's like a carpet underneath it now, and like it's just better arranged for like the space of our house. So I worked on that and just like throwing away old junk and stuff like that, and then framing a picture, and like getting a bunch of stuff like around the house done. Like there, we've had we had to help my sister-in-law like move, and so we had a bunch of like junk in the garage that wasn't hers, but it just like was filling up our garage because it's like 7 years of stuff. And so it's been a long project, but we finally got to go to the dump and like throw away a bunch of crap that like we didn't need. And then the other half that was like usable stuff, we got to like donate it to the Salvation Army. So we did that today, where we took like like 2 cars full of stuff just to like donate, and just stuff we've accrued for like years, you know. And then like a lot of stuff that's like, you know, stuff from when Ben was like 1 that he doesn't play with anymore, and like some kid out there would like probably enjoy. So anyhow, oh, there it is. He was saying his latest videos about critiques. Yeah, and it's really good. So I recommend it. It's basically explaining how to give a good critique without being a troll. And so that's what Scott's up to. And then like other than that, like he's doing these leadership classes, and like and then like I'm looking forward to talking to him again, but like Artcasters was pretty good too, our last one. And I'm trying to think. I don't know who our guest is this week though, so that'll be interesting to see too. I always like that. One of the surprises of doing Artcasters is like sometimes I don't know the guests till later on, and like Scott doesn't either. And I think it's a fun surprise, because it's like I meet so many cool artists through it. I met Adam through Artcasters, I think. Or I think I met Adam. Adam, did I meet you through the hundreds or through Artcasters? I think it was through the hundreds. But and then Frank, I definitely met you through the hundreds and Artcasters, and then through Jeff too, Jeff Lafferty, who I haven't heard from in a while. Have they done any recent streams? Because if they're back at it, I want to watch him and Gibran's stuff. Yeah, so Adam was saying probably the 100s, which is totally, yep. But I want Jeff to do more streams, and I haven't heard from Gibran in a while either, like on YouTube. And Gibran's funny. I think politically we're probably like polar opposites, but I like Gibran. He cracks me up. He's a funny dude. Good sense of humor. Pretty badass artist too. I think that's the other thing I like about both Jeff and Gibran. I also just really, I don't know. Jeff's a good dude. It's interesting when you like meet people that are like super authentic, and he always seems like a guy who's like he's not like fronting to be anything he's not. He just is who he is. Oh, sweet. I'm gonna have to check out his YouTube channel. I haven't seen it in a while. He was doing like some music videos and stuff, but I'd like to see some current stuff. So maybe I'll binge Gibran's channel. This is actually going to be a flat, like also a prophetic picture here, because this is me in about half a year. Be like slaving away on pages. I guess I'm doing that now, but it's definitely going to be, I think, a lot more fun for like the streams. Like when the next set of streams after this may not be as fun, because like, so the thumbnails are like still drawing and stuff, but like for the good foreseeable future, when I'm done with these thumbs and the first for the second book, it's like I don't like this head not being tilted forward. Then I'm just going to be doing panel borders and then tighter type and like layout and stuff. So like that's going to be pretty boring, because it'll just be like to watch, I guess, on like on an art note, because it's just literally going to be me in Adobe Illustrator, like laying out like all the technical lines and stuff for this thing, and just knocking out pages of those. But after that, it should be pretty fun. Yeah. But when I get to this point where it's like inking, it's going to be amazing. And that's going to be a long time of just like inking page after page after page. I'm excited about that. So here we go. And we're going to have my big old crazy drafting table. Do you have a favorite part of the process? Inking is the most enjoyable parts for me, says Adam. Yeah, I'd say like that's probably my favorite. Inking is just meditative and cool. And if anything, to me, in the process is meditative and sort of like awesome. It's that. Um, Inking is like probably hands down my favorite part. Plus, because I'm hand lettering, like when I'm done inking a page, other than like a very short scan and cleanup process, because I usually ink pretty tight, so there's not like a crap load of cleanup on my inks. It's like the page is done, like at that point, and that's a really fun point. So, but yeah, the process of inking to me is like that would easily be in my top 10. This part is weirdly one of my favorites, but it's also one of my least favorites because it's like a lot of thinking and working things out, and I love that process. Like I think that's the most engaging part, but it's also like really mentally exhausting, like trying to kind of figure out layouts and stuff, that trying to emote on the page. So this is going to lead off a sequence that's really similar to the sequence that I had of like the thing from the previous one. So it will have equally a very similar thing with passing of time through the window while drawing, which is actually something I've had as a theme in my first comic I ever did, which you guys can get on Etsy. If you look for Joshua Kemble Numb, you can get my first ever finished comic. That was a written one when I back in like 2000 something. And the comic actually has like a little sequence like this as well, so it seems like a recurring theme, kind of riffing on how long comics take. Frank was saying my favorite part is finishing. Yeah, I would say that might be one of them. It's weird though, because like I'm trying to get better at enjoying the process because of the fact that I'm probably always going to be working on comics. And so I feel like I need to start enjoying the process more, even though it's a beast. It's like I still think it's possible to like kind of enjoy it, because you definitely miss it. Like I've definitely had that feeling when I've finished a big project before, where there's almost like a depression that hits, because you just like, especially a big project like this. Like luckily, I didn't have it hit too bad with 2 stories, book 1, because I have book 2 to get done. But when book 2's done, like that's a project that might by that point have taken me like a decade. And so I definitely feel like there's going to be like this, there's probably going to be a bit of a depression after that, because, or maybe just like a total excitement for being done. Because it's been a beast of a book to work on. I actually very recently turned down some pretty good money on a job because it would pull from working on these pages, and specifically because I feel this is something I'm supposed to do. Like I feel like it's one of the. This is going to sound nerdy and terrible, but I feel like this is a book that I'm put on the earth to do. Like it's one of the things I'm supposed to do. And so it's important, even if only like 3 people read it. And it's a weird thing having a project like that. So like if that's done, yeah, I can't imagine. It could be really cool. I definitely look forward to like that other project, like that pitch project, is kind of nice in the sense of like it gets a little heavy-handed after a while to be writing about yourself all the time, and so it was kind of nice to have like characters that weren't me, and like not having to talk about like stuff that's like really personal experiences was kind of nice for a second. But the weird thing is, I generally kind of like what I'm working on. So, but I'm getting better at enjoying the thing. Yeah, the process is a monster, Frank said, but it's fun when you defeat the beast and then you start again. But yeah, I will say I also like the little milestone moments. And then I like moments where like a page unlocks and you come up with like a really cool thing. I know it's weird, but even just that stupid hanger thing for the first panel of this that I came up with during the after party on Corey's channel. But it's like this first panel, just that, like that made my day. The hanger question mark. That little things like that. I mean, that's not the most profound thing I've done in the comics. Or moments like on the last book, one of my favorite moments was when I was talking about something being like a YouTube search, and then I made the YouTube search into a narrative, like so the type within the search ended up being the comic book panels. That was cool. Like moments like that where you come up with like, or like there's one where I took like a description of panic disorder and made it like a airplane diagram. Like just weird things like that like keep me really interested and engaged and give me a real boost, because anytime I can do stuff in comics that only comics can do, like if I stumble upon one of those things, like that keeps me really interested. And then Frank said, I've started the 30 days of making mini comics. Started a few mini comics already. I'll be happy when all of them are finished. Hopefully at the end of 30 days, I'll have more comics under my belt. Why not do the 100 days, man? Why only 30, Frank? I'm teasing. Is that a challenge, though? Like a new challenge, the 30 days? I still think somebody out there needs to do 365 days of making comics. That would be a challenge. Sounds like a beast, though. Okay, so here we go. And then I'm going to have some of the lighting here. And this will continue tomorrow. I will probably wrap up this page and maybe start the next. But for now, this is going to do it. I'm probably not going to post this to Instagram yet because it's just not finished. And I'd rather just post a finished page. So in a couple days, maybe. Although I usually like to keep daily progress just to keep myself accountable. But there we go. Did I get to the line? I got to the line. All right, guys. 100 hours challenge. I like that. Something that is in consecutive days. Well, dudes, I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in and checking out this stream, checking out the stream on Corey's, and hopefully checking out the Indie Review Show. So if you guys haven't yet, you can watch the latest review that we posted. We did at 9 p.m. Pacific. And it is literally findable at irsagency.com. That will not take you to the Internal Revenue Service. Where it will take you is to the Indie Review Show, where our agents sit by and decide to review books and do a really cool job at it. And then, Frank, you called it correctly. Night Gang 3 times tonight. That's right. And like I said, I really appreciate everyone who showed up to all of those, but especially you guys who are so hardcore that you followed me to like the third stream, which I really appreciate you guys keeping me company while working on this beast of a book. Yeah, wasn't like the most profound page tonight, but it's also I feel pretty good about what I've gotten done, and I also just like really appreciate the time that you guys put into like hanging out and contributing in the chats. So anyhow, last thing, if you guys haven't yet, please pick up a copy of Two Stories, book one, which is out on almost every book retailer from Marcosia Enterprises. But I'm trying to direct people to Amazon because if you have Prime, you get free shipping. And right now you can get a copy of a book that usually retails for $19.99 for like $9. And then Frank said it was a fun conversation. That's good. Like I said, I'm not always talking like super a lot about my faith. I'm not ashamed of my faith, but I just definitely like also don't want to create content that's like specific and only for like people who believe. I actually like really like just kind of making stuff. And then Frank said I might just buy another copy and gift it to someone. Go for it. Unless you're like hard up on cash or something, then hang keep the cash. but yeah, it's only $9, so it's like a pretty good deal on Amazon, and you get free shipping, so pretty cool. Other than that, you can get it at like most retailers, and you can also just ask that your local indie-friendly store, like the big box chains, probably won't order Marcosia Enterprises stuff, but like comic shops, totally. Just tell them it's available to order through Ingram, and just describe the book, and they should be able to order it for you. So yeah, anyhow, thank you guys again, and I will probably see you later today, because I'm planning on working on pages tonight, aka today, when I get home from where I work full time as an art director. So yeah, that'll do it, and see you guys next time. Bye.